Hello everybody and welcome back to Biology with Gracie. Today's video is going to be on prokaryotes and eukaryotes, which is part of GCSE Biology. So first we're going to start with animal cells. So animal cells are eukaryotic, and what essentially this means is that they contain a nucleus. So the subcellular structures of animal cells, which essentially means the organelles or components of the cell, are the nucleus, the cell membrane, the cytoplasm, ribosomes and mitochondria. Next, we've got plant cells, and plant cells are also eukaryotic, and the structures that they contain are the same as the animal cells, except they have some additional features, and these additional structures are the cell wall, chloroplasts and a permanent vacuole. So now we're going to label up an animal cell and a plant cell with their components. So the components in black are part of both animal and plant cells, and then the components in green are just part of plant cells and not animal cells. So I'm going to go over what each of these components are in just a second. So I'm just going to quickly show you where they lie within each cell. So we've got our cell membrane, which surrounds the animal cell and is the second innermost wall of the plant cell. We've then got the nucleus, which is this big dark region in both cells. The cytoplasm, which is this liquid substance that holds all the cell's components. We've then got mitochondria, which are these represented by these green ovals here. And then we've got ribosomes, which are these small purple circles. And then for the plant cell, we've got the cell wall, which is the outermost wall of the cell. We've then got chloroplasts, which are these slightly darker green circles represented here. And then we've got this big white region, which is the permanent vacuole. So now I'm going to talk about the structure and the function of the components of both animal and plant cells. So the first component we've got is the nucleus, and this is enclosed in a nuclear membrane. So essentially the nucleus has its own protective layer or wall. And the function of the nucleus is essentially acting as the brain of the cell. So it controls what goes on inside. It controls these cellular activities. It also contains chromosomes, which contain DNA, and DNA is essential because of its coding abilities. So it codes for particular proteins, and these proteins are needed to build new cells. We've then got the cell membrane. So this membrane surrounds the whole cell, and it's very important in controlling what enters and what leaves the cell, and it also separates different cells from each other. We've then got the cytoplasm. So as I talked about before, this is a liquid jelly-like substance, and it contains all the cell's organelles and also important enzymes. And these enzymes are involved in chemical reactions, and cellular activities also occur here as well. We've then got mitochondria. So they're sort of like a jelly bean shaped structure, and they're really important for aerobic respiration, so respiration that involves oxygen. And these reactions occur in the mitochondria, and the importance of this is to produce energy for the cells to be able to function properly. And then finally we've got ribosomes. So these are tiny little round structures, and they're found on a structure called the rough endoplasmic reticulum. And these are essentially the site of protein synthesis. So what this means is the site at where the proteins are made and produced for the cell. So now I'm going to go through the other plant cell organelles, so the ones that aren't part of animal cells. So we've got our cell wall. Now this is made from a structure called cellulose, and the cell wall is very important in supporting and protecting the cell and providing it with strength. We've then got chloroplasts. So chloroplasts contain a pigment called chlorophyll, and this pigment is what makes chloroplasts green. And the role of this chlorophyll pigment is to trap the energy which is transferred from the sunlight to be used in a process called photosynthesis. And the role of photosynthesis is to essentially provide food for the plant. And then finally we've got our permanent vacuole. So this is very large, as we saw from the diagrams where we labelled it up. It's this big white area, and that white stuff represents cell sap. And this permanent vacuole is found within the cytoplasm, and its role is to improve the cell firmness and rigidity, so it's important in strength as well. Now we're going to talk about bacterial cells. Now bacterial cells are prokaryotic, so this means that they do not contain a nucleus. So some of the subcellular structures of bacterial cells include a cell membrane, cytoplasm, ribosomes, and cell wall. So we know that these are obviously components also in eukaryotic cells. The difference with bacteria is that their ribosomes are much smaller and their cell wall is made of peptidoglycan rather than cellulose, as is the cell wall in plant cells. So some of the other components of bacterial cells which we don't find in eukaryotic cells are a slime coat, plasmids, flagella, and chromosomal DNA, also known as circular DNA. Now, I will just touch on the fact that there is a eukaryotic cell with flagella, which is obviously the sperm cell, but generally most eukaryotic cells don't contain a flagella. So these are the other components of bacterial cells. So now we're going to label up our bacterial cell. So we've got our cell membrane, our cytoplasm, our ribosomes, and our cell wall. And then we've got our chromosomal DNA or our circular DNA. So it's this large circle within the cell. We've then got our slime coat around the cell. We've then got our plasmids, which are these smaller circular pieces of DNA. And then we've got our flagella. Now, not all bacterial cells have a flagella, but some do. So now I'm going to talk through the bacterial cell components. So we've got our chromosomal DNA, which is also called circular DNA, and this is essentially one large single DNA loop, and this is held within the cytoplasm, and its role is to control most of the cell's activities, just like the nucleus in eukaryotic cells. We've then got plasmids, which are smaller rings of DNA, also called extrachromosomal DNA, and these code for additional genes which aren't found in chromosomes. We've then got a slime coat. So I didn't say previously, but not all bacteria have a slime coat, and the role of this coat is to provide protection. Then we've got flagella. So these are long, thin tail-like structures with no membrane, and they essentially help the bacteria to move. So as I said before, not all bacteria have a flagellum. So flagella is the plural and flagellum is the singular. So some bacteria do have multiple, hence I've put flagella down there as well. So if you want to have a look at the other organelles which are in bacteria, so the ones that animal and plant cells also have, then make sure to go and look back at the other table to see their structures and functions. So now I've just created a little summary for you guys to essentially see everything that I've talked about today in one diagram. So if we've got our animal cells, we've got our plant cells, and we've got our bacterial cells. So I've created a little Venn diagram here. So we know, of course, that the cell membrane, the cytoplasm, and ribosomes are all components of all three types of cell. We've then got nucleus and mitochondria, which are part of both plant and animal cells. We've got a cell wall, which is part of plant and bacterial cells, but not animal cells. We've then got our chloroplast and permanent vacuole, which are specific to plant cells. And we've got our chromosomal DNA, which is part of bacterial cells alongside plasmids, the slime capsule, the slime coat, and the flagella. So I hope you guys enjoyed that video. I hope you found it useful. Comment down below, let me know if you found it useful and there's any questions you want me to answer, and make sure to give a big thumbs up so that I know that you are enjoying these and I continue creating these biology videos for you. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe down below and I will see you in my next video. Bye guys.